So how do we teach our children about brotherhood and how to develop brotherhood?
Well, that should be part of the social education. Yes.
Which is, once again, is the responsibility of the parents, the first hand, you know. I need to mention one thing, that all the good manners, good behavior, stem actually from one fact, which is taqwa Allah. And taqwa is a combination of love and fear. We did address love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before. And also the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very, very important. It's important to keep balance between love and fear. So a part of the responsibility of the parents towards their children is to teach them about the social manners. For instance, the unity and the brotherhood which you're talking about. This is a part of our deen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةً. And this ayah is such a great ayah, describing the believers as they are nothing but brothers. إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةً. Without borders. There should not be any geographical borders that separates the Muslim Ummah, by the meaning that whether you are from Pakistan, India, or live in the United States, you are my Muslim brother. I love for you what I love for myself. I dislike for you what I dislike for myself. I'm extremely concerned about everything that happens to you. Because the Prophet ﷺ says, مَثَلُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ فِي تَوَادِّهِمْ وَتَرَاحُمِهِمْ وَتَعَاطُفِهِمْ كَمَثَلِ الْجَسَدِ الْوَاحِدِ. The example, the likeness of the believers in their love, compassion, and taking care of each other, like one single body. What about it? Imagine that you have an abscess somewhere in your finger, in your toe. What's going to happen? You can't sleep for the entire night. And you take medicine for the entire body, not only for the spot of the pain. The whole body is aching and sharing the pain. Similarly, if there is a part of the Muslim world which is suffering, or a Muslim brother who's in trouble or in calamity, everyone should be concerned. Everyone should try to remove this calamity and burden of the community or the particular brother or sister. This is the thought of unity and brotherhood in Islam.
It doesn't really exist like that right now, though. Is there a way we could...
Unfortunately, yes, you're right. You know, the first thing that the Prophet ﷺ did when he entered Al-Madinah upon immigration, of course, he constructed the masjid. Why? So that he can unite the ummah, the immigrants and the supporters. And the supporters amongst themselves, the different tribes. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us in Surah Al-Imran, وَاذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ إِذْ كُنْتُمْ أَعْدَاءً فَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِكُمْ فَأَصْبَحْتُمْ بِنِعْمَتِهِ إِخْوَانًا. Reminding us with His favor upon us that when He made us brothers and united our hearts after we were enemies one to another. This is a blessing which you find in Islam and which we should maintain. As a matter of fact, the Prophet ﷺ says that لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه ما يحب لنفسه. None of you will be considered a perfect believer until he loves for his brother what he loves for himself, and accordingly dislikes for his brother what he dislikes for himself. That can be obtained by certain practices, because the Prophet ﷺ taught us that by Allah you will never enter paradise until you believe, and you will not be considered complete believers until you love one another. Shall I teach you about something that if you do will create love amongst you and will make you love one another? So the companion said, certainly, Ya Rasulullah. So the Prophet ﷺ said that, spread the greeting of peace amongst you. Greet those whom you know and those whom you don't know, as long as they're Muslims. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In the greeting of Islam, not good morning, good evening, hi, hello, what's up, and all of that. You know, sometimes our kids have to say that at school, and we have to say that at work and so on, especially with non-Muslims. But we have to adopt this as our practice, to spread love and compassion amongst the Muslim Ummah. And once you're a child, you hear that his colleague or his friend is sick, you should rush to buy a gift and take your child to visit him. So you create the sense of responsibility towards his friend, that even though he's a child, he's a kid, he's 8 years old, he's 11 years old, but he still owes his friend and his brother a visit. And you can relate stories like the one which the Prophet ﷺ said, that when a man visited his brother in another village, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent an angel who met him. He disguised as a mankind, and he said, "Where are you heading?" He said, "I'm going to visit a brother of mine, not a real brother, a blood brother, but you know, a brother in Islam, like all of us." In this village, he said, "Does he owe you anything?" He said, "No." "So are you going to take anything from him?" He said, "No." He said, "Why then are you taking the trip?" He said, "Because he's my brother for the sake of Allah, and I miss him. I just want to see him." So he said, "Man, guess what? I am an angel whom Allah sent me to you to tell you that Allah loves you because of your love to your brother." So this quality of having Allah loving you is actually the biggest gain and earning a man can achieve.
If we love somebody, should we tell him we love him? Like if I love Afdal, I should say, "I love you fi sabilillah," and teach our children to say
Well,
this?
the Prophet ﷺ was sitting once and with some of his companions, and one of them saw a man was passing by. He said, "Ya Rasulullah, I like this man for the sake of Allah." So he said, "Did you inform him?" He said, "No. I mean, we're not used to telling people that I like you, because they might misunderstand it." So the Prophet ﷺ said to him, "Go inform him that you love him for the sake of Allah," which he did. And also the Prophet ﷺ taught us that we should respond back if somebody tells you, "I love you for the sake of Allah." That, what should you say?
أحبك الله الذي أحبتني فيه.
Exactly. May the one whom you love me for his sake love you
back
in return.
Which is this is the answer of the angel's answer that you just said.
No. So love is not mere word that you say, "I love you and I like you." No, you have to prove it. That when a person is sick, you rush to visit them. How about if he's in debt?
You help him pay his debt.
Exactly. Sneezes.
Bless you.
Say, "Yarhamukumullah." Exactly. Well, I would rather say, "Yarhamukumullah," may Allah have mercy on you. You know, because this is what the Prophet ﷺ taught us. That how about if he's absent and somebody is addressing him with some foolishness, talking bad about him?
Protect his honor.
Well, I don't care. I mean, he's not there. No. He has rights upon you.
Get his back.
Exactly. Support him in his absence. And one of the best ways to improve this love relationship and unity between brothers in Islam and kids as well, that you sit and raise your hands and pray for your brother, for his uncle, for who's not been there in the meeting. So the child will notice that you're praying for somebody else in their absence. He might ask. And if they don't ask, you will make a point and you say, "You know why I did so? Because the Prophet ﷺ said that there is a great reward in praying for your brother in his absence." Then you can start a lecture. But you don't start it as an independent lecture. You take it as an incident which came by accident. Then you elaborate on that. The importance of concerning about your brother in their absence, praying for them, sharing with them the joy, happiness, and sad moments as well. So if you know that they have a situation, somebody died, somebody's sick, you share them their feeling.
With sorrow.
How about if your brother travels?
Take care of
his family is still there. You call them every once in a while, you pay a visit, you know, because you love them for the sake of Allah and you love his entire family as well.
This is a good way to teach.
Brotherhood has no border.
True.
But yet we find that, like for instance, you know, I live in New York, and you always find in the mosque, you have the Arab brothers gather in one corner, and then you have the Caribbean brothers gather in one corner, and there's a segregation. I mean, we have our own customs and things like that. Is anything wrong with that, as long as you don't hate each other?
Well, sometimes that happens naturally because I like to speak my language and so on, and that happens particularly with Muslims who live in Western societies where we're together in one Islamic center of different backgrounds. But just make sure that we do not single out a person. We're sitting three of us. Me and you speak English or speak Arabic or Urdu, and the third person doesn't understand our language. So we start talking to each other with another language which he does not understand. Right. Because the Prophet ﷺ prohibited us from doing so. Why? Because right away the shaitan will pick on that and will bring to his attention they must be talking bad about you.
Talking about me.
Or something that they don't want you to know. Okay? However, whenever it is Salah time, everybody lines up and we don't say, oh no, only Pakistanis pray in this section. No, we'll mingle out.
Are you from Guyana?
Because as early as the first generation of Islam, we have Bilal, who was a black Abyssinian slave. We have Suhaib, who was a Byzantine slave. And we have Salman al-Farisi, who was Persian. And, so this is one of the beautiful things and facts about Islam. And as I said that, inshallah, may Allah bless you all and perform Hajj on all of us. So that you can see and witness the beauty of being diverse but believing in the same God, praying towards the same Qibla, chanting the same supplication, Labbaik Allahumma Labbaik. We respond to you, O Allah, we respond to you.
Because through teaching your children Islamic brotherhood and sisterhood, if you have daughters, you really show them that Islam is a religion for not just the Arabs, not just for Africans, not just for people in the Middle East, but the whole world can accept Islam.
Should I repeat myself once again? That cannot be effective without setting an example and showing yourself as a role model and practicing this with your friends, with your Muslim brothers, and the mother with her sisters, and the people in the community, and so on. Some people pay attention to their kids and ignore others when they go to the Islamic center and so on. No. You should treat them all equally. And if you buy food for your child, make sure that he shares and ask him to share. It's not a big deal. Or buy food for everyone else and alternate so that we have actually to educate the parents to be able to educate.
Speaking of food, you guys want to go grab a sandwich real quick?
Yeah.
But not spicy. Make sure. I already have enough heartburn.
MashaAllah.
Sounds good, man.
Okay, let's go.
Get us something to eat, please.
Anyone who chooses other than Islam as a religion, as a way, it won't be accepted from him. This Quran has to be understood by the way the companions of Rasulullah understood the Quran. We disconnect ourselves from the actions of certain Muslims who oppress people and kill people unjustly.
This unity and brotherhood is a natural result of mercy. And our deen is all about mercy. The Prophet ﷺ was a mercy for mankind. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ Teaches us mercy. And he says, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, الرَّاحِمُونَ يَرْحَمُهُمُ الرَّحْمَنِ Those who have mercy, the most merciful will have mercy on them. You get to be rewarded for the same kind of action you do. So if you have mercy, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will have mercy on you. And I recall here a very interesting story that, in Cairo, when Amr ibn al-As was actually the Sahabi who conquered Egypt and entered Egypt, he asked his companions to build a fustat or a tent for him, which they did. As he was ready to leave, they found that there was a pigeon, a bird, which landed on top of the fustat. So Amr ibn al-As hated to disturb the pigeon and said, just leave it, forget it. And they did not take off the tent.
That's merciful
around,
animals.
exactly, around this fustat, people started building, homes and houses and tents and so on. And from there stemmed the whole great city of Al-Fustat. You see, subhanallah.
SubhanAllah.
This is very, very interesting.
And I think it teaches us also to be merciful upon animals also, not only humans. Like the woman like the man and the whale who went down to drink water.
No.
And he came up.
No. Allah have forgiven him all his sins. He offered the water to a dog. So mercy with animals is a very important aspect that the Prophet ﷺ emphasized on. The opposite to that is what the Prophet ﷺ said, the woman with the cat. That a woman have imprisoned a kitten. She did neither feed her nor let her go out so can find food here or there. So the cat died. The Prophet ﷺ said that, guess what happened to this woman? دخلت امرأة النار في هرة. She entered the fire of hell. Why? Because she tortured the cat. The Prophet ﷺ taught us even a merciful way. When you come to slaughter, there is a technique, an etiquette of slaughtering an animal. I mean, you're killing the animal anyway, but no. If any of you is about to slaughter an animal, you have to rest it on its side and sharpen the knife. And never slaughter an animal before another animal, because you're killing the animal twice.
That's what they do. A lot of people, they do
Not
that.
only
You're
that,
supposed to know.
you know how sometimes you see in Eid that the butchers sharpen the knife before the animal. This is very wrong.
Yeah.
This is very wrong, and
they
it's
slaughter
prohibited.
their heads right in front of all the animals.
No, this is very wrong.
This is haram to do this?
Well, I wouldn't say it's haram, but it's not the etiquette that the Prophet
It's not
ﷺ taught
mercy
us.
upon animals.
He
'cause
taught
he gets
us,
terrified.
whenever any of you is ready to slaughter, فَلْيُحِدَّ أَحَدُكُمْ شَفْرَتَهُ وَلْيُرِحْ ذَبِيحَتَهُ. Let him sharpen his knife so that it will go fast and easily. Second, let him set his sacrifice or his animal in a comfortable position, the most comfortable position, and not to be slaughtered before any other animals.
If we're supposed to be this way with animals, how should we treat one another?
Exactly.
You don't have a mind, you don't think, but how we treat
That will
each other.
take us to the concept of ithar. Ithar is a very, very high quality. You cannot really find in any community, but they have to be a believing community. They have to be taught by Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Al-ithar is unselfishness, is to give precedence to others over your own self, over your own needs. Can you just imagine that you see somebody whom you don't know, and he wants something that you wanted to, and you give it to him, you give precedence and preference to him over your own self? Can you imagine that? That once the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sitting in the masjid, and there was a man who came, he was hungry. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent to his wives, if they have anything to offer. They said, that for several days we have none but water. And he was the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he actually asked his companions if any of them would be willing to host their guest. There was this man who sent to his wife a message that we have a guest. She was worried because they only had the food of the kids. They did not have even food for themselves. So she said, no one, just put them to sleep. We have to take care of the guest of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Then he took him home. And he asked her to turn off the light, the lamp. And they sat breaking the bread and making noise with their mouth as they are pretending that they are eating with him. So the man ate, and he was satisfied. In the morning, as they went, the man and the host went for Salatul Fajr. The Prophet ﷺ received them with a cheerful smile, saying, Allah is amazed at what you and your wife did to your guest last night. So Allah had already informed Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed an ayah في Surah Al-Hashr saying, وَيُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةٌ وَمَنْ يُوقَ شُحَّ نَفْسِهِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. And guess what? I'm not going to give you the meaning of this ayah. You need to go and search for it في Surah Al-Hashr. The story is very interesting, and the meaning of the ayah is so great. And that's why I remember once in the school, sometimes we reward the kids by giving them prizes, candy and so on. So there was only one lollipop. you know,
big trouble.
Yeah.
Only one lollipop.
And every girl wanted that. So that brought to my mind and my attention the fact that I should treat this problem, which is selfishness. I want it, I want it. If there's only one, guess what? So next class, I taught them about a very interesting story, which took place post the Battle of Al Yarmouk, where one was looking for his cousin. He found him, and he was injured seriously, and he was dying. So he rushed and he gave him water to drink. He left the water to his mouth and he was ready to drink, and he heard somebody else was in pain. So he refused to take the water, and he motioned to his cousin saying that, give him the water.
He's worse off than me.
Yes, he needs it more than me. So he did. And the second person got hold of the water and he was ready to drink, and he heard the third yelling, and he was in pain. So he said, give it to him. Everyone gave precedence to the other over his own self, while they were really in need for that sip of water. Guess what?
Love for yourself,
when he
love
took
for
it
your
to the third, he had already died. So he tried to save the first or the second. 3 of them died without any of them taking a sip of this water. And during the life of the Prophet ﷺ, a man was given a gift. It was actually a head of a sheep. I mean,
nice gift.
Many of us might think that it's insignificant, but the Prophet ﷺ said that one should never belittle a gift which is given to him, even if it is a hoof or a feet of a sheep. You know? So he said, probably my brother such and such is more in need for this head. So he took it to him. So the second said, probably my friend such and such is more in need, and he took it to him. It kept circulating from house to another. Guess what? It ended up
Back
to the very first donor.
donor.
Can you imagine? وَيُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَى أَنفُسِهِمْ. So relating stories like that to our children and being a role model and practicing this in front of them, that sometimes I want to eat. Like, you know, nowadays, we were talking about the calamity which took place in Pakistan. You know, several million people are stranded and they don't have homes. So, we're fasting. Before eating our ta'am al-iftar and breaking our fast, we should really think about those who don't have anything to eat right now.
That's one of the beauties of Ramadan and fasting in general, is when you fast, you realize that people are hungry. And then
So, I will ask my child, you know what? It's very sad that we're enjoying life and we have our Muslim brothers are suffering and we cannot do anything. So what can we do? How much saving you have? Well, open up the box and take some of this money along with some of yours, and take your children, go to the center, go to whatever organization where you either write a check or have your child deposit the donation, the charity by himself, by his or her hand, having them play a part and taking a role in the process of giving the charity. Feeling that I'm responsible for my brothers, no matter whether I have seen them or not, whether I know them or not.
Collecting clothes, asking the child to find me, like, you know.
Exactly. And it will be best if you test your child that, I want you to give me something of your clothes so that we can give it to some children here or there. See, what kind of clothes will he give? So if he chooses the best of his clothes, you should not be upset. Rather, you should be
overjoyed.
لن تنالوا البر حتى تنفقوا مما تحبون. You will never acquire and achieve righteousness unless if you spend of that which you love. Not the leftover, the spoiled food, that which you don't need, you know. And I know that we have very little time, but before we leave, we have to talk about a very important attitude, which is courage. We said that you should not always scare your children, no, rather should give them trust and confidence and make them. I remember that Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu ardah, and you know, when we hear Umar ibn Khattab, you imagine a huge man, and he was the Khalifa. He was walking once in one of the streets, and the kids saw Umar ibn Khattab. Everybody ran away, took off. There was only one child who stood there, didn't move. Kids said, it's Umar, run, 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 run. He said, no, I didn't do anything wrong so that I have to run. So Umar ibn Khattab came and approached the child, seeing everybody else running away, and he was still there. He said, why didn't you run along with the kids? He said, well, I didn't do anything wrong so that I should run, nor is the road narrow so that I have to give you space. He said, what's your name? He said, Abdullah. Son of whom? Az-Zubayr ibn al-Awwam. So he realized who raised them. It was Az-Zubayr and Asma. May Allah be pleased with them. Those kind of children whom we would like to have as our children.
Of course.
I think it's getting time for the Salah, guys. So if you guys want to make wudu or get ready to go, then we should probably go. That reminds me of a story real quick about governor of Yemen and the Caliphate of Omar ibn Khattab. And Omar gave him a bunch of money because he was poor, but he gave it out. So Omar found out that he gave all the money out, so he gave it to him again. And his wife said, oh, wallahi, we have all this money now. You gave that out, but now we have this new money. He said, it would be better for us to give it away. So the Sahaba rushed to give away all their possessions.
That is true.
That's a good lesson for our children.
That's true. Brother, I thank you so much for hosting us at this beautiful house. May Allah fill it with Iman and reward you for that.
Ameen.
Thank you so much. Jazakumullah khairan. And see you inshallah.
Inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.